your son doesn't need any introduction, he's absorbed. Okay. On Tuesday, 26th, we're going to be observing the appearance day of Lord Caitanya. So, at our centers here in Chicago, we're going to be spending some time over the next, today, tomorrow, next day, discussing the pastimes of Lord Caitanya. And who is Lord Caitanya? Today is Sunday. On Wednesday, I returned to America from India on United Airlines, and they lost my luggage. Yes. Well, they found it. Actually, I didn't exactly lose it. It was just a close connection between one arrival and another departure, and I made it to the plane before my luggage did. The plane took off, so they found my luggage, and one man from United Airlines delivered it right to the temple. So he rang the bell and called me on my phone and said, I'm here with your luggage. So I came downstairs, and I met Bhattacharya. And he said, oh, I didn't know this was the temple. I've been here before. I said, really? He said, yeah, you people have really good food. And so we came into the lobby, and Bhattacharya was there, sitting there, doing something. And he said, do you have any festivals coming up soon? So I said, sure. So I walked over to the easel, and there was a poster of Gaura Purnima. I said, here, this is the appearance day we're celebrating on Tuesday of Lord Caitanya. He said, who's that? So here's the who's that explanation. I said, you've been to the temple, right? He said, yeah. I said, you know who's Krishna, right? He said, oh yeah. I'll show you. He said, we went into the temple, over on the wall. He said, that's a painting of Krishna. I said, right? He said, yeah, that's right. It's a painting of Krishna. So then who's Lord Caitanya? So Lord Caitanya is a manifestation of Krishna who came to teach the chanting of Krishna's holy name. So in every age, just like, so this is, conversation with Bhattacharya. He didn't call himself Bhattacharya, he called himself Gary. I call him Bhattacharya. Because just like there's different seasons, summer, fall, winter, spring, right, Gary? So there's also, in the Vedic picture of things, there's cycles of time, different ages of mankind. And in each of the four long periods of time, ages of mankind, there's a particular activity that's most beneficial for spiritual perfection. And Lord Caitanya delivered that method for this present age of mankind. And it's the chanting. So you've seen this chanting in the street. Oh yeah, I've seen people. I don't see it so much anymore, but I used to see it a lot. Okay, so that's that chanting, congregational chanting, publicly chanting, taking the names of God and singing and praising the names of God, is the primary means of achieving spiritual perfection for this age, and Lord Caitanya came to deliver that. He said, when's your festival? I'd like to come. Okay, Tuesday, 5 to 8 p.m. Say, right here? Yeah, right here. You're going to have some of that good food? Yeah. Okay, I'll try to come. I'm supposed to work that night, but I'll see understanding of who is Lord Caitanya. He's directly a manifestation of Krishna. Krishna himself, who's coming to teach how to love Krishna. Because Krishna's final teaching in Bhagavad Gita is all varieties of dharma or religiosity, they're subordinate to this one principle. They're pursuant to and subordinate to one principle. Surrender unto Krishna. Lord Caitanya taught that. Krishna taught that. So then Krishna considered people in this age of Kali, they may not know how to surrender to Krishna, so I'll come and teach them how to surrender to Krishna by displaying pastimes of surrendering to Krishna. I'll show them this is how you do it. And the primary means, is the chanting of Hare Krishna. So there's so many other things to say about who was Lord Caitanya, but that's a good start. He's the deliverer of the Yuga Dharma. Krishna himself teaching how to awaken full love for Krishna through the chanting of his holy name. And he appeared 500 and something years ago, 525 or something like that, years ago, in Mayapur, in the district of Nadia in West Bengal. And he foretold that this chanting will be heard in every town and village throughout the world. And the Hare Krishna movement is an attempt to fulfill that order of Lord Caitanya, or vision of Lord Caitanya, that persons all over the world, every town and village, should hear Krishna's holy name to fulfill the purpose of Lord Chaitanya's appearance, to give love for Krishna through that very simple and natural process. So, in honor and in anticipation of Lord Chaitanya's appearance, I was encouraged to speak something about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. And then when you think about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, there's a lot of pastimes. So what to speak about out of all of this? It was more difficult to narrow it down what to speak about than to speak about. So I thought today speak a little about the pastime of Lord Caitanya delivering Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Because there's many nice things about Lord Caitanya to hear in relation to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. According to the biographers of Lord Caitanya, Gaura, Gunadeshtipika, and Caitanya Bhagavat, and Caitanya Charitamrita, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a manifestation or a form, an expansion of Brahaspati. Brahaspati is the priest of the heavenly region. The demigods have a spiritual master, and his name is Brahaspati, and he appeared prior to Lord Chaitanya's appearance. And he was born in a Brahmana family, and not only in the whole of India, but in the whole of the world, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was considered the most learned scholar. In fact, the name Bhattacharya was given. His name was Sarvabhauma, but he was given this title for his erudition. And he had a brother who was also, up there, but he wasn't the most learned person in the world, Bhattacharya. And they had a school, and in their school, they taught the different, it's called darshans, or understandings from the great munis and rishis of previous ages. They taught, there are 6 different Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya went to the place where they had the teaching of Nyaya, the one darshan that was missing. And it's one of practically the rules or the etiquettes of brahmanas. If someone approaches you submissively to become your student, you teach them. So when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya went to this high seat of learning in Nyaya and requested, I would like to become your student, they had to say yes. So they taught him the system of Nyaya. But then when he requested the book that teaches the system of Nyaya, the answer was no. They wouldn't give him the book. Because if they gave him the book, they wouldn't have the exclusive, title to teaching Nyaya. Then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya could teach it just as well as they could. So they said no. They probably was a clever no. You know how it goes. Oh, we can't find it. Or we only have one copy, and the man who makes copies, he took a vacation. So some polite way of saying no. They wouldn't give him the book. But that was okay, because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had a gift that they didn't know. He had didactic memory. He had photographic memory. So after having seen the book and having heard the explanation of Nyaya, he just went back to Naperville and wrote it again. He didn't need a JPG, like get out a digital photo, copy each page and then print it. He just did it from his mind. That's the kind of mind that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then became renowned throughout all of India as the most learned scholar. Everybody wants to study with the most learned person. Now this was all before Lord Caitanya appeared. And also before Lord Caitanya appeared, the king of Orissa, whose name was? Pratapparudra. Pratapparudra heard of the renown of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he made him an offer. The offer was, you please come to Puri, and I'll make you the chief priest of my kingdom. And you can have hundreds and thousands of highly learned scholars as your students. So he said yes. He left Naperville, went to Puri. Now the biographers say it was done for another purpose, a transcendental purpose, that is, so he couldn't be on location when Nimai Pandit was born, and then, some competition between Sarvabhauma and Nimai Pandit. So he, by the Lord's arrangement of Leela, he left Naperville, went to Puri, and became the chief priest. And the chief priest meant exactly what Pratapparudra had offered. He had tens of thousands of sannyasis as his students. He was a grihastha, but because he was so vastly learned, he was like an encyclopedia. He knew everything, and they wanted to learn everything, so they studied under him. And then Nimai Pandit was born, as we're going to be celebrating in 2 days, the birth of Lord Caitanya. When I say Nimai Pandit, that's Lord Caitanya when he was young. Because one of the names gives other types of protection. And so the name was given to the child, Nimai, so that he would be protected. Because 8 other brothers before Nimai Pandit, shortly after they were born, they died. So for the protection and well-being of the child, the name was given Nimai. And because he was a learned person, he was given the title Pandit. So Nimai Pandit. So Nimai Pandit, when he was born, he performed in his childhood and youth pastimes of scholarship. He was super scholar, surpassing all the other students, even surpassing the teachers, even surpassing Digvijay Pandit from Kashmir. That's a whole chapter of Chaitanya Bhagavad describing one traveling scholarly person. Some scholars would do this instead of just keeping a school in one place. Some would go from place to place. Especially they would go to places of high learning, and they find who is the best scholar in that place of high learning, and challenge them in a debate. Now, we don't have so much of that today. We have bullies and gangs that go and challenge another bully, another gang, or football team, or a soccer team, or a baseball team, challenge in sporting competition. But in Vedic times, and even at this period, there was this traveling scholar, Keshava, from Kashmir, so Keshava Kashmiri. And with a swagger, he came into Navadvip to find out who was the most learned person so he could have a debate with them and defeat them. Because he was a worshipper of Goddess Saraswati, an ardent worshipper of Goddess Saraswati, so involved or absorbed and dedicated to worship of Saraswati that one time Saraswati appeared before him and gave him a benediction. Whoever it is that you debate, I will appear on your tongue, and with the quality of speech, you'll be able to defeat anybody. So he was feeling, wow, I can defeat anybody. Look at me, wow. So he came into Navadvip with that arrogance, feeling Saraswati is going to make me victorious. Who's the greatest scholar in all of Navadvip? And he was told, this teenage boy named Nimai Pandit, he's the best scholar. So he was, ready to roll up his sleeves and have a debate with Nimai Pandit. One day they met. He was walking along the banks of the Ganges. Saw a big crowd of students gathered under a tree with one boy standing, and he said, who's that? That's Nimai Pandit. Oh, can you introduce me? Anyway, introduction, and Nimai Pandit took the role, a humble role, before Digvijay, conquering debater, Keshava Kashmiri. I heard about you. You're such a wonderful Sanskrit scholar. May I make a request of you before in the presence of my students? Can you compose some verses in glorification of the Ganges? Oh, yes, I can compose 100 verses, just like that. And he started spontaneously composing. The Chaitanya Bhagavad says, like the blowing wind, like it was coming from his mouth. Beautiful verses, 100 of them, non-stop, glorifying about verse 56 and the 100 verses that you recited. What were the qualities and the faults in that verse 56? He said, well, I was just reciting the verses. I didn't memorize the verses. And there's no quality, there's no faults in my verses, my composition. Do you find some faults? You're a grammarian. What do you know about alankar and composition of poetry? And besides, how can you remember what happened in the 56th verse? And Nimai Pandit said, the Supreme Lord is very kind. He gives to some the capacity to speak Sanskrit so fluently and beautifully like you. And others he gives the capacity to remember things very easily. It's the gift of the Supreme Lord. So again, I ask you, what are the qualities and faults in verse 56 of your many verses? He said, well, I don't remember the verse, but since you remember, maybe you can say qualities and faults. Well, there's many qualities. This quality, that quality, wonderful. But the three faults were this one, that one, and the other one. And then he explained what the faults were. Of the fault of redundancy, and the faults of something else and something else. Just technical descriptions. And Keshava Kashmiri was speechless. His tongue would move. And all the students of Nimai Pandit started to laugh at him. And Nimai Pandit said, no, don't laugh. He's a great scholar. See what he did. He just composed 100 verses. Who could do that? This isn't a proper etiquette. Don't laugh at him. Keshava Kashmiri, please come and visit us again tomorrow. So you can, again, honor us with your brilliant eloquence in Sanskrit. So, appreciating the etiquette of Nimai Pandit, but there in Paris, at the same time, he left. And he went to do his Saraswati Puja that evening. And he was praying to Saraswati. What happened? You gave me this promise that I would defeat anybody in debate, and this young teenager, he humiliated me in front of hundreds of students. What happened? Why did you break your promise? And then he took rest at night. Very disturbed sleep. And during his sleep, he had a dream. And Saraswati appeared just as she had appeared before him, giving him this promise, and chastised him severely. Keshava, you are so proud and foolish. Yes, I gave you some promise, but you asked me to defeat the person from whom I derive my power. You're deriving your power from me, but I derive my power from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this person isn't just a youth, a young scholar in Navadvip. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you've made a big offense. So tomorrow, you should go to Nimai Pandit, place your head at his feet, beg for his forgiveness, and ask him to instruct you. Because he's the one who gives my capacity to give you what you have. And he woke up. And his mind was jubilant and disturbed at the same time. Saraswati has spoken to him. But this apparently just small boy, young man, is the personality of Godhead, to whom Saraswati is answerable, or from whom Saraswati receives her ability to give me my ability. And I've offended him. So the next morning, underneath the same tree by this bank of the Ganges, Lord Caitanya, or Nimai Pandit, was assembled with all of his students, receiving their lessons in Sanskrit grammar. And Keshava Kashmiri came and out of respect for this elder, learned Brahmin, Nimai Pandit rose and wanted to offer his respect. Keshava Kashmiri came and placed his head at his feet. Please forgive me for the offense I made against you yesterday. There's no offense, you spoke so beautifully. And he didn't reveal to Lord Caitanya or the students what happened in his dream that night. But, I offer you my respects, and I wish that you will also instruct me as you're instructing your students so nicely. So Lord Caitanya gave him an instruction. He said, you take your Sanskrit skill and compose, hear from the Vaishnavas, here in Navadvipa, and then compose one book that's just glorification of Krishna. Just glorification of Krishna. Something very similar to what Narada gave as an instruction to Vyas to compile Srimad Bhagavatam. One literature, like just as glorification of Krishna. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya did that. And, Keshava Kashmiri did that, and the book became then very famous. So Nimai Pandit, as a young person, boy growing up and a youth, up until his middle and late teens, he was showing scholastic pastimes, but he wasn't exhibiting his quality of being a devotee of Krishna, because again, Krishna descended to teach how to, by his own example, how to love Krishna. But he hadn't entered into those pastimes yet. Meanwhile, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is in Puri. In his Leela, Lord Caitanya accepted initiation from Ishwara Puri in Gaya. He went on the pretext of performing his Shraddha ceremony for his departed father. While there, he met Ishwara Puri. He received initiation from Ishwara Puri. And immediately his ecstasy of love of God exploded and continued in unprecedented proportions. Eventually he took sannyas, and his intention, now with his sannyas name of Sri Krishna Caitanya, Nimai Pandit became Sri Krishna Caitanya when he received sannyas. So as a sannyasi, his immediate total absorption was to go to Vrindavan and be in the land of Krishna. Circumstances in his Leela arose such that his mother, Mother Sachi, petitioned him, just one thing, please don't go to Vrindavan, I may never hear of you again. Instead go to Puri, because Krishna is also in Puri. Lord Jagannath is also Krishna. Go to Puri, make that your place of residence. And from time to time, because the devotees of Bengal go to Puri at the time of Rath Yatra, then I'll get some news of you. And maybe sometimes you'll come again to Navadvipa to take your bath in the Ganges, and then I could see you again. Well, please make your residence in Puri. So he accepted the request of his mother. Instead of going to Vrindavan, he went to Puri. And en route to Puri, what time is class supposed to end?
12 noon.
12 noon, okay. En route to Puri, he traveled with just a handful of intimate associates. One of those intimate associates was Lord Nityananda. So, just north of Puri, south of Bhubaneswar and north of Puri, on his way to Puri, Lord Caitanya handed his danda to Lord Nityananda and said, I want to cross the river and go take darshan of a deity on the other side of the river. You please take care of this danda for me. I'll ask you for it when I come back on the other side of the river. So Lord Caitanya swam across the river to the other side and visited several temples that are just on the other side of the river. And meanwhile, Lord Nityananda, in his mood of an avaduta, like a totally detached from any worldly consideration mentality, started having a conversation with the Danda. Who do you think you are? Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the personality of Godhead. And he doesn't need to accept the order of renunciation. He's the opulent Lord. He's Bhagavan. He's the possessor of all opulences in full. You impudent Danda, you have no place in his life. I can't stand to see Sri Krishna Chaitanya carrying you. He took the danda and broke it in 3 places and threw it in the river. And he was very happy. When Lord Chaitanya came back, he didn't right away ask, where's my danda, Lord Nityananda? They traveled some distance. And as they saw off in the distance the very tall dome of the Jagannath temple and the chakra at the top, he turned to Lord Nityananda and said, may I have my danda so I can enter into the holy dham with my danda? He said, oh. In a moment of ecstasy, you fell. And you fell on the danda broke, and so I threw it away. So my mistake, you can punish me as you like. He didn't tell the truth. He made up a story. And Lord Chaitanya said, what kind of companion are you? I'm a sannyasi. I don't have any possessions except my danda and my kamandalu, and you've lost them both. I don't want to travel with you anymore. There is Puri. You all go ahead, and I'll come later. Or I'll go ahead, and you come later, but I don't want to travel with you anymore. It was a leela. So they said, no, you go first. We'll stay behind. So that he could enter, the leela, so that he could enter Puri alone. And have this exchange with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So I'm going to have to fast forward a little bit because of time, but he entered the temple of Lord Jagannath. He didn't just see, how many here have been to Puri and have seen Lord Jagannath? Okay.
You can go 15 minutes over because I don't think the offering is here yet.
Okay, great. So, thank you. So, when he saw Lord Jagannath, you know how big is Lord Jagannath. He saw Lord Jagannath. He didn't see Lord Jagannath. He saw two-handed Krishna holding a flute. The Lord of his life, because he's in the mood of a devotee of Krishna, and not only a devotee of Krishna, Radharani, seeing Krishna, he literally ran with his arms outstretched like this. Oh, Krishna, Gopal, Govinda! And he collapsed on the ground, unconscious, in ecstasy of love of God. The guards in the temple had never seen anything like that before. They just thought, this is a madman creating a disturbance, and they were ready to pick him up and throw him out of the temple. Just at that moment came Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Providential arrangement. And he saw this 24-year-old, beautiful, featured, young sannyasi lying on the ground unconscious. He said, don't throw him out. Make an arrangement to bring him to my home. It's very near the temple, and I'll tend to him. So he's Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, so whatever he said, they followed. Guards in Puri don't usually do like that. But they did like that. just some little fibers of cotton and held the fibers of cotton before his nose, because if the person is faking, then there's regular breathing, in and out and in and out. But if it's actually trance, the life airs are suspended. There's no in and out. He held the cotton fibers before his nostrils, and they hardly moved. So we understood, this sannyasi is in a state of trance. He's an exceptional personality. And so I'll just wait until his trance somehow completes. Meanwhile, Lord Nityananda and the other associates of Lord Chaitanya came into the Jagannath temple. And they didn't see Lord Chaitanya, so they asked. They gave a description. Have you seen a sannyasi that looked like this? And they said, oh yes. He fell to the ground unconscious in front of the temple, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has taken him to his home. So they went to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's home, and there they saw Lord Chaitanya lying unconscious. So they knew what to do. Have kirtan. When in doubt, have kirtan. So they had kirtan. And after some time, Lord Chaitanya came to external consciousness. And by that time, the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, whose name is Gopinath Acharya, was also there. And when Lord Chaitanya came to external consciousness, some discussion took place, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said a few things. He advised Caitanya Mahaprabhu, from this point in time forward, don't enter the temple alone. Always go with one of my associates. So that way there'll be no difficulty in case you have another episode of ecstasy and fall unconscious. So everything will be all right. And go, take darshan again. And when you come back, I would like to honor you and your associates with prasadam of Lord Jagannath. So off they went. And now Gopinath Acharya is there with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, brother and brother-in-law. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wanted to know, who is this sannyasi? Do you happen to know where he comes from and his particular order of sannyas? And Gopinath Acharya, having previously also lived in Naperville, he knew he's the grandson of Nilambar Chakravarti. And Sarvabhauma said, I know him very well. He was a very dear friend. And his son-in-law, Jagannath Mishra, I knew them very well, like a dear friend. So this is his son, Jagannath Mishra's son, and Nilambar Chakravarti's grandson. We're like family. We're so close. And what order of sannyas did he accept? Now this is a technical thing, like really technical. He took sannyas from Keshava Bharati, so he's in the Bharati line. So that's not a very elevated line. I know the mantras. If he likes, I can give him sannyas in a much higher order of sannyas. Just tell me, I can do it. I'm super scholar. And Gopinath Acharya was very unhappy with his brother-in-law and said, you're such a fool. This is the Supreme Personality of God, and he doesn't need any line of sannyas. And Sarvabhauma Acharya said, whoa, wait a minute. The personality of Godhead? On what scriptural authority do you say a young sannyasi is the personality of Godhead? And Gopinath Acharya gave scriptural quote after scriptural quote after scriptural quote, and then said, you're such a fool. The personality of Godhead is in your own home. You don't even recognize it. May that day come when you will get his mercy and you will understand who he really is. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, hey, we're just having a conversation. Don't get so hot under the collar. We're family members. We're just having a conversation. Calm down. Caitanya Mahaprabhu came back after darshan, and Sarvabhauma received it very nicely. And in the course of the conversation, he volunteered. He said, your features are so exquisitely beautiful. It'll be very difficult as a young sannyasi to maintain your sannyas vows. But I can help protect you to maintain your sannyas vows. If you like, I can teach you Vedanta Sutra. And Lord Caitanya said, you're my senior. You're my worshipable teacher. If you would be so kind as to instruct me in Vedanta Sutra, that would be most merciful. He said, you come tomorrow, right here, and I'll begin instructing you. So that arrangement was made. Lord Caitanya then came the next morning, as was arranged. Lord Caitanya was given an elevated seat, because he was a sannyasi, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sat on the floor on a straw mat, because as a grahastha, he's honoring the sannyasi. But he's taking the position of the instructor of the sannyasi. He was used to that. He had thousands of sannyas disciples. He sat on the floor, they sat up here, and he taught them what's what. He was very comfortable with that position. And 7 days straight, day and night. Whoops, all day. He instructed Lord Caitanya, who said nothing. He just sat there. In the 8th morning, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is scratching his head saying, you don't say anything. I don't know if you're understanding or not understanding Vedanta Sutra. Can you say something? And Lord Caitanya said, I understand Vedanta Sutra very readily, but I must say, the more you speak, the more the meaning of Vedanta Sutra is lost. Really? How can you speak like that? You understand Vedanta Sutra? Then you explain Vedanta Sutra, and I'll listen. On your order. You're my superior. I'll explain my understanding of Vedanta Sutra. Listen carefully. He explained Vedanta Sutra so simply, so clearly, so vividly to Mr. Super Scholar, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. In other words, he was speaking his language, the scholarship language. It entered into the heart of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He can understand, not only by symptoms you're not an ordinary person, by the message that you're speaking, you're not an ordinary person. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, could you speak on the Atmaram verse from Srimad Bhagavatam? And Lord Caitanya said, you're very scholarly. Why don't you speak on the Atmarama verse? Oh yes, I can speak on the Atmarama verse. I'll give you 26 explanations that are not alike, one or another. And off he went, giving his 26 explanations. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Lord Caitanya, would you like to explain the Atmaram verse? On your order, if you wish me to. And he explained 64 ways the Atmaram verse without repeating any of the verses or explanations given by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And hearing that explanation, the way that Lord Caitanya delivered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was speaking his language, or understanding the person, or understanding his audience, and corresponding to the person, presenting. He didn't do like this with everybody. Well, Sarvabhauma is a super scholar, so that's the method. At the end of hearing the Vedanta Sutra verse explained by Lord Caitanya and the Atmarama verse explained by Lord Caitanya, the light went on. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "You're not an ordinary person. You're the personality of Godhead." Because no one can give this explanation like you've given. And Lord Chaitanya smiled. And behind him appeared the six-armed form of the personality of Godhead. Six-armed form means in two hands were the symbols of Lord Ram, the bow and the arrow. Two arms, Krishna's flute, and holding the flute. And the other two arms were the kamandalu and the danda of Lord Chaitanya. Demonstrating in spiritual form, I am Krishna, I am Ram. At the same time, I am Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya fainted. And he then understood completely. The person who's seated in my home is the personality of Godhead. Previously, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya not only was a scholar, but he wasn't a personalist, like many people of this world. In our pranam mantra to Srila Prabhupada, the second one, Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini. Nirvishesha, monism. Shunyavadi, voidism. Monism and voidism, or impersonalism, godlessness of these two different brands, and derivations of those brands. Some people have, taken the brand and made their own variety, non-generic productions of impersonalism and voidism. It's pervasive. Even those persons, I'm sure you've had the experience, certainly I can say I've had the experience, people that believe in God as a person, when you show them the form of God, they can't handle it. God can't look like that. They say, why you can't look like that? Well, you can't look like that. Well, that's very rational. You can't look like that because you can't look like that. But God has form. God has personality. God has qualities. He has unlimited expansions. He's a person. And he's a loving person that engages in loving exchanges with his dear devotees. And Lord Chaitanya is not only an expansion of Krishna, but he's Krishna who appears in this world through his own example to teach love for Krishna. That's Lord Chaitanya. And he did that with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Later on, I've got another 12 minutes. Later on, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, well, he was asleep during Mangalarti. But Lord Chaitanya was up for Mangalarti, and he went to the Jagannath temple. And Lord Chaitanya received prasad of Lord Jagannath from the Jagannath temple. And he went straight to the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya while he was still in bed, and gave him the Mahaprasad of Lord Jagannath. And immediately Sarvabhauma sat up and started eating the prasad. And Lord Chaitanya said, "Whoa, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you're a Brahmin. You know that Brahmins don't eat before they bathe and wash their mouth and do their puja, and they eat. You just violated all these regulations. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, please explain." And then he quoted some verses that said, the prasad of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so auspicious that when one receives it, one should accept it at once, in any condition, because it's transcendental to these smarta regulations that are binding upon the Brahmana. And Lord Chaitanya was very happy. He purposefully went to visit Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in that circumstance to see, had he realized what had happened the day before. He had become a Vaishnava, not governed by the smarta regulations, because the smarta regulations are there for those who have not yet reached the stage of understanding the personality of Godhead. But one who accepts God as a person and has become devoted to God as a person, those same regulations, they may apply if it's other things. In fact, Vaishnava won't eat other things anyway. But the verses say, if you receive prasad of the Supreme Lord, even from a distant place, never consider it to be stale or old. Just like this morning, we were breaking Kadasi on Dwadasi morning. Rati Prabhu came to the house saying between whatever it was, 6:46 and 7:05, you're supposed to break Kadasi. So Jagadananda said, here's some prasad from Puri. Not, oh, it's stale, it's old. Scripture injunction says, it should be taken at once, especially at that auspicious time of breaking Ekadasi. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya achieved that state. How? By the association of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Caitanya Mahaprabhu gave his mercy to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, then in turn the tens of thousands of sannyas disciples of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also became devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya explained to them, he was now able to give Vaishnava teachings because he had received them properly from Lord Chaitanya. He then composed some very beautiful verses. I'll end with this. One of those verses in glorification of Lord Chaitanya.
15 more minutes.
Okay. I'll go a little slower then. It goes like this. Vairagya, Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga, Shikshartam Ekam, Purusha Paranam. So, the teaching that Lord Chaitanya gave, according to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, in capsule form, was Vairagya Vidya, detachment through knowledge. But knowledge of what? Knowledge of Krishna. Nija Bhakti Yoga. By engaging ourselves, the body, the mind, and our words, and ultimately the soul, unto Krishna's service, by that dedication unto Krishna's service, one can achieve the topmost stage of spiritual perfection. Shikshartam ekam purusha puranam. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari. He's Krishna himself who's taken the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So for all those 500 plus years, that verse still stands, composed by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, as a very nice glorification of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One more, time permitting. One time later, after Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had become a devotee, he began reading Srimad Bhagavatam very, very intently. And one day when Lord Chaitanya was visiting him, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya complained. He said, Vyasadeva made a mistake in Srimad Bhagavatam. He was such a scholar, he could think, Vyasadeva made a mistake. What mistake? There's a verse in the Bhagavatam where Vyasadeva says that Krishna is Mukti Pade. He's the giver of mukti. He should have said Bhakti Pade. He's the giver of bhakti. Because when people think of mukti, what do they think? You all know what, when people say mukti, what they think. Sayuja mukti is what they think. What is that? Sayuja mukti means become one with the Supreme. Although there's 5 kinds, he explained, although there's 5 kinds of liberation, 4 of them are Vaishnava liberations. Sharshti, Sarupya, Samipta, Salokya, achieving residence on the same planet as the Lord, Salokya, achieving a form like the Lord, Sarupya, opulences like the Lord, intimate association with the Lord. Although those forms of liberation are there, when people hear mukti, they think of merging with the Supreme. What an abominable circumstance, merging with the Supreme. When you merge with the Supreme, where's the service? So it should have said, Bhakti Pade. Vyasadeva made a mistake. Lord Caitanya said he didn't make a mistake. Because as he's the giver of bhakti, he's also the giver of mukti. No one can give mukti except the personality of Godhead. No one else can give mukti but the personality of Godhead. So it was right. Well, anyway, I like Bhakti Pade. Lord Caitanya said, just see. You have become such a Vaishnava. You don't even like to hear the word mukti anymore. You only want to hear the word bhakti. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, it's because of Gopinathacharya. My brother-in-law, he just uttered these words that said, may that day come when you will receive Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and you will also then understand him and become a devotee. It's by his mercy. And Lord Caitanya was very pleased to hear. He wasn't taking credit. Oh, now my super